Hi guys, it's Mary. Every time I'm filming a video now, I have a different setting, so it takes me like half an hour to start filming, and I need to correct this. I also need to get myself a new camera because I'm using my phone, and other than the fact that there's no more space in my phone, so I'm afraid it's going to stop recording and I wouldn't even realize. But also I can't see myself, so I don't know what I'm doing, but I thought better this than nothing because I really want to keep going with my channel. Even though I won't be here often, but I've never been here often. So I don't think I'm setting high expectations, so it should be fine. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the books that I read in the month of June and July. Typically, I had a very great reading month in May. And yeah, typically every time I think, not only every time I say this on my channel, but even to myself, I think this was a great reading month. I am on a roll. I'm reading a lot. I am part of the community. And then suddenly I stop reading or something happens that prevent me from being part of the community. And yeah, I don't know what happened in June, but I've only read one book in June. Yeah, it could be the fact that we've been to Copenhagen to visit my sister. She's now living there. But it was not only that, because we've only been there for a week. So I don't think this is a good excuse for me not to have read more than that. I don't know what happened. I think the book that I was reading I did enjoy myself reading it, but yeah, I don't really think it's the fault of the book, but I think there were the different factors. Like the book maybe wasn't as great as I was expecting it to be, but also I had stuff to do and I could never, every time I sat for reading, I would like fall asleep or something. So yeah, I've only read one book in June, and then in July, I managed to finish 3 books. So today we're gonna talk about 4 books that I have here. And let's just do it in the order in which I read them, why not? The first book, which is the book that I've been reading for the whole of June, was Enter Ghost by Isabella Hammad. And I thought I wanted to read in the beginning I thought I'm going to read the long list for the Women's Prize for Fiction. And then I thought, well, no, I couldn't possibly read the long list. Let's just focus on the short list. But even that, I'm not as fast as you're supposed to be when you're reading books for a prize. Well, I thought, I'm interested in this list. So regardless of when the winner is going to be announced, I just want to read the books from the short list that I think would be appealing to me. So I selected a few, and this was one of them. I've read great reviews. I've heard good things about this book, and also this is set for the majority of the story in Palestine, which is something that interests me a lot. So I thought I would pick it up. And the story is focusing around Sonia. She's an actress and she lives in London with her family, basically, but they're originally from Palestine, and her sister went since back to Palestine, to Haifa, to live there, and she lives there. She works there, and she goes to visit her, and she's in a period of her life where she's getting out of a relationship, and she's basically free, even work-wise, and she starts participating in this production of basically Hamlet, Shakespeare's Hamlet, but in Arab, that they are producing on the West Bank. So this book is all about theater and art and the role of art in politics, art as a protest as well, the play as a protest, and I really love the comparison. I am myself, I would call myself like a theater kid. I've always loved theater. I participated in theater. I was, acting and also singing and dancing and all that jazz. So it's something that I can relate to. And I think it's an interesting topic that it's explored very well. The only thing that didn't maybe work for me, even though this was a 4-star read, more of a 3.5-star read for me, but I would grant it 4 because it stuck with me. So I think it was an important book for me. It was not just a 3-star read. But I thought I couldn't really get on board with the protagonist that much. She felt a bit distant, and I didn't really see her arc very well. I didn't understand her motives that much. So yeah, ultimately that was what prevented me from giving this book a higher rating, but it was very enjoyable. It said things, because this was written before what's been happening, currently, even though it's not a new situation. So Palestine has always been, unfortunately, nothing much has changed, and this book is very much relevant, even if it's not, updated on the events. And for example, I don't know, I really loved how she talked about Palestine and just the relationship between Palestine and the world. And it says, for example, Haneen, which is her sister's name, Haneen once compared Palestine to an exposed part of an electronic network where someone has cut the rubber coating with a knife to show the wires and currents underneath. She probably didn't say that exactly, but that was the image she had brought into my mind, that this place revealed something about the whole world. And boy, isn't that true. So yeah, I like this. It was not perfect, but still is a book that I would recommend, and a relevant one. So yeah, this one. I read Good Talk by Mira Jacob, and this graphic memoir has been all around BookTube for a while now. I thought it was even older than that, but actually it's from 2019, which is a long time ago, but to me it's like last year, but I never had the chance to pick it up, not because I didn't want to, but because it's one of those books that I think I really want to read it, and I will at some point. But yeah, what really propelled me to read it was that I read a book previously by her. It was last year or this year, I don't remember. I think it was this year that I read a book by her, by Mira Jacob, and it was The Sleepwalker's Guide to Dancing, and I really loved that novel. So I love her writing style. I like her as a person, and I thought I definitely want to check out her graphic memoir, which is a sort of a different style, I would say. It's not like beautifully illustrated. It has like sort of cutouts, as if they were, I don't know. It reminds me of the style of a newspaper, and the people that she drew, basically they all have the same expression throughout the book. I mean, they sort of change, but a little bit, just not a lot. And they have speech bubbles and pictures. This is basically how it's constructed, but I think it works very well. It reads very quickly, and it's all centered around her son, that when he was 6, basically, he started to ask a lot of difficult questions, as kids do, about race, about them as a family, about politics, basically. And she had a hard time responding to him, but also she did it very well. And throughout, she also talks about her life, her life story, her childhood, her marriage, and everything. And I thought it was super compelling. I was very interested in everything. This book is centered especially around the period in which Obama was elected president. So that's basically the main focus on the book, and how much hope around this event. And I do remember, I mean, granted that I'm not an immigrant. But she's from India. She's from Indian descent, even though she's American, of course, and she's married to white American guy. So it's a difficult situation to explain to her son. So I'm not saying I can relate to the situation because I live in Italy, you know, this is set in America, but I remember the feeling when Obama was elected and everybody was happy. Then, you know, it happened, you know, we all know what happened and now it's going, but still, that period, I remember it was very hopeful. So yeah, it's centered around that. And I could really relate to this. I'm glad that I didn't read this before, and that I read it now that my son is 6. And he does ask a lot of difficult questions. Yes, not in the same context, but I still relate to the situation in which you have to explain him things that he doesn't have the capacity of understanding because it doesn't have enough context yet, and yet he wants to learn and he wants to know things. And I experienced this even before with different types of questions, but he always was too curious for his age, and for me it was always hard to explain things to him, and it gets easier as he grows, but it's still a really difficult task. So yeah, I could really relate to this. And also I know that there's a race component in this that I cannot relate to, but to me, it translates into being neurodivergent. So being different in a way, which again, it's different. It's not the same, but I still can see myself and my son. And since my son is like me, most likely neurodivergent too, we don't have any, you know, it's not official or anything, but I still can see that he's like me, and I feel a sort of heartbreak for him, because I think about my life and how difficult it was for me to navigate society, and I really hope that he won't feel the same things I did. And in the end of this book, there's basically a sort of speech that she dedicates to him, and I cried so much because I just could see me thinking the same towards my son, where she, you know, she tells him, you're different. She tells him, here's the thing though, the real true thing I still have trouble admitting. I can't protect you from everything. I can't protect you from becoming a brown man in America. I can't protect you from spending a lifetime caught between the beautiful dream of a diverse nation and the complicated reality of one. I can't even protect you from the simple fact that sometimes the people who love us would choose a world that doesn't. And as I said, it's not the same, but still I can relate. And also removing my own life and my own experience, I just feel for them so much, that it makes me very emotional. So this was great. A 5-star read for me, and I definitely recommend this book, especially if you have kids, but you know, anyone can enjoy this. Then I read The Talented Mr. Ripley by Patricia Highsmith. I read Patricia Highsmith a couple of months ago. I read Deepwater by her, and I really enjoyed it. I thought she's a great author. I love how she writes. She really has the ability to put you straight away in a position where you're very immersed in the story, even though you just started it. And I really appreciate that. And I love this book. I gave it 4 stars, but I have to say that probably I would have appreciated this book more if I hadn't read Deepwater first, because I felt a lot of similarities between the two books, and especially between the two protagonists. They are both sociopaths and murderers, basically, which is not really a spoiler because, again, this is a thriller crime novel that is not typically, you know, you're not following a situation and then you have to figure out who did something. You are following the perpetrator, you know, of the acts. So you know what's happening, and you're just wondering if they get caught. What is going to happen? What else is he going to do, for sure? But still, it's a sort of a different crime type book, I would say. So yeah, Tom Ripley, the protagonist of this novel, is again a sociopath. He's basically looking for the situation presents itself to him where the father of one of his acquaintances, not really a friend, but acquaintances, sort of recognizes him and follows him in a bar and asks him information about his son that is living now in Italy and doesn't want to come back to the US. So he sort of gets entangled in this story and decides to go to Italy to seemingly convince this guy to go back home to his family. But obviously, once he's there, he gets sucked in this sort of rich world and way of living. And yeah, things unfold from there. I liked it a lot. I had a great time reading it. She has a great writing style. But again, as I said, I thought it was very similar to the story, to the Deepwater story. And also, I sort of, but this is not the fault of, I don't think it's anyone's fault, but I knew that there was a series of books. So there's 5 books about Tom Ripley. So I thought, of course, he's not going to get caught. Nothing, major is going to happen to him because the book, the story is going to continue. So I'm thinking, I don't know if you have enough, like how much more can you get from this character in another 4 books? I'm a bit worried about that because I intend to read the series and I bought the other books in the series, but I don't know if this sort of story with this sort of mood would work for another 4 books. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed myself. And now I want to see the movie that I've never seen for some reason, because it's a very old one. It's from 99, I think, and it has a stellar cast. And yeah, I'm very curious now. And what was funny was that this is set in Italy, which is where I live. And it was very fun to read a book set in Italy. And also I was worried for the movie because usually in the 90s, movies set in Italy were not really shot in Italy, or the people that were supposed to be Italians were not really Italians, and you can tell, obviously, being Italian. But actually, I saw that the movie also was really shot in Italy, and there are Italian actors playing, parts in this movie. So I'm very excited for that. But yeah, this was The Talented Mr. Ripley. Finally, I read All the Lovers in the Night by Mieko Kawakami. This was, as the previous ones, translated by Sambet and David Boyd from the Japanese. And I gave this book 3 stars. So I cannot say that I did not enjoy this book. I did enjoy this book. I read it in one day, which is unusual for me, given that I don't have time to read usually. But this was a very fast read. And yeah, so I read the previous 2 books from this author. Breasts and Eggs was very much talked about, and I think it was, a good book. I like her writing style, but I didn't think it was well accomplished in the fact that it didn't really merge. There are 2 books that were merged together, and I don't think that works for that. Then I read Heaven, and that one was good. I really liked that one. And this one, not so much. Still liked her writing style, but here we're following Irie. I don't know how to read that. I'm sorry. Fuyuko Irie, I would say. She's a freelance proofreader, and she's basically very much removed from society. She doesn't have a social life. She never has. She never had. Even when she was little, she was always... she didn't have friends. She had a very bad experience, sexually. So yeah, she's also traumatized in a way, but we're following her as she sort of falls in love, basically, again. Not again, she falls in love, and she sort of starts making friends in a way. I don't know how to explain this, but yeah, I felt for the most of the book that the passive protagonist was an excuse for the author to just dump her thoughts on her, because there were a lot of scenes. I'm sorry if you can hear yelling. They're my kids. They're with my husband. They're fine. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, for example, she had these situations in which she would go somewhere and this friend of hers would start talking, having these big monologues, and she would just like nod along or just listen, and they would talk about society or, you know, judgments, just thoughts that were dumped there, and I didn't like that. So yeah, there was that, and I didn't really like the sort of love storyline as well. The protagonist sort of makes me think about, you know, a convenience store woman type of character, but that one worked very well for me, even though it was a cold sort of protagonist. You couldn't really get into her mind. Here, you're supposed to get into her mind because, I don't know how it's written, you're supposed to feel for her, but I didn't really. Yeah, so I couldn't really feel for her, and I don't particularly like how everything resolved. So a bit of a letdown, to be honest. I thought, you know, she's a very promising author. I love how she writes, and I really hope, I mean, I'm still going to read more from her when something else comes out, and I still have to read, I think, a couple of books from her backlist, but yeah, this was a bit of a disappointment. It was the first to read. Definitely, if you're interested in the author, read it, but to me, it was not. Yeah, I could have done without reading it. So yeah, there's that. And these are all the books that I read in the month of June and July. I'll talk to you guys very soon, hopefully, and please talk to me about anything, about the books that I read, about if you read them, what you thought of them, what have you been reading in these summer months, and yeah, let's chat in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!